Good evening, everyone. It's 7:05. I'll call the regular meeting of the Planning Commission for October 22nd to order. I'd like to thank SCTV for being here to share what we do here at Planning with the town. I much appreciate their efforts. Let's see. Bob, could I have you sit for Tina, please? And Rich? Actually, Rich, why don't you sit for Ted?
Sure.
He's not here. And third item, Capital Regional Natural Hazards Mitigation Plan updated 2013, excuse me, to 2018 executive summary. First time I've ever seen an executive summary that took 13 pages, but they covered quite a bit of ground. Did everyone have a chance to read through that document? I did talk with Tom Roy, the Public Works Director, and he said this is, in his opinion, kind of a very high level. It's not real specific. It's more conceptual. Is that a good way to put it, Hiram? Mm-hmm. That's what the town will do. And did you have a chance to talk with any of Rich Sawiski or anybody?
Talked to Rich briefly on this before, Nick, and he actually was a staff person from the town. I believe it sat through the CROG sessions on this. When I first was made aware of the updated plan, I was a little bit surprised, but there were some parts of it that pertain to, as far as land use, as far as I'm concerned, other parts are about more emergency services and typical public works stuff, EMS stuff. The reason that I suggested that the Land Use Commissions consider this really had to do with primarily objective number 1 on page 9. Those are under mitigation actions. It's simply a recommendation from the plan to improve stormwater management and groundwater recharge through the region to prevent increased flooding and lessen the effects of drought. And then there are 4 specific actions that they recommend. Again, these are not regulations. The CROG doesn't have that authority. But what they are actually are sort of foundations for some of the things that we've been working on here for quite a while. So for example, the first one, to encourage all municipalities in the region to adopt regulations that incorporate and refer to recommended practices. And it goes on to talks about stormwater quality. It talks about low impact development techniques. And we did that LID study a couple of years ago, which I think is still getting very good reviews across the state and out of state actually as well. And the idea that I had was that if the land use commissions saw this objective, not necessarily as a regulation, but as sort of backup for the types of things that we're trying to do, and substantiation for the things that we're trying to do. It's not just Simsbury saying this is what we want, but what we're saying here is that there are a number of other towns in the region that suggest that we do this as well. It's just substantiation for it. So in the last meeting with Design Review, for example, we talked about the fact that when developers come in and they say, well, what's the basis for this information? Why are you asking us to do this? And the idea is to be able to point to something, not only our local regulations, but to a document that has a bit broader scope, a regional scope, and say the regional Council of Governments has suggested that we incorporate these into our regulations, and we think it's a good idea. And in fact, the land use commissions have all said we think it's a good idea as well. So that's basically it. Not looking for any kind of really hard and fast, requirement here. I finally got to the point with both the Zoning Commission and Design Review where they said, yeah, we're in general agreement with that. We understand that. We think that's a good idea. And that's really all I was looking for. The second one, for example, encourage development that's in harmony with the natural drainage systems. And that really talks about all the types of things that you see, whether it's a subdivision or whether it's a larger development in town, and just trying to make sure that to the extent possible within your purview, along with the Zoning Commission, along with the Wetlands Commission, that those things are done in harmony with the natural drainage patterns in the town. Foster improved understanding of the importance of stream management. Those kinds of things are done primarily by the Wetlands Agency. And then talking about continued participation with other regional agencies in state and Connecticut, Massachusetts, and in some cases, New York. So the bi-state corridor management plan. So those are basically just general ideas that, as Mike said, is kind of at a very high level. But what I was hoping that the commission will be able to do is say, yeah, we think those are good things. And as they work themselves into local regulations at our level, you know, is that a good thing to do? So that's just what I was trying to do, is looking for support for those kinds of things. Questions, comments, objections, whatever, happy to.
Hiram, there's reference to a previous version of this document. I think it's called the Pre-Disaster Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan of 2008.
Yeah.
Did the town show you know, positive reaction to that? Did we have to do anything to CROG?
As far as I know, we weren't asked to do anything with it. And the reason that this one came to my attention, Bill, has to do primarily with the fact that they included the low impact development stormwater stuff here. This is fairly new. And so that's why I thought that this was a little different than the 2008 plan. As far as I know, though, the town, and I know the land use commissions didn't look at the 2008 plan. And so I think that was done kind of at the town engineer, public works director level, and I think that's where that stayed.
Okay, so what's being asked of this commission tonight?
If you agree that the objectives, objective 1, 2, 3, 4, for example, are generally good things that we should continue to pursue as they impact our local regulations. That's all I'm looking for, is a statement of the fact that you might agree with that or not.
Just that portion?
Yep, that's really all I'm looking for. The rest of it is really, as I said before, EMS, you know, fire marshal, police, public works kind of things, you know. We're not going to go out and repair roads. That's really not this commission's prerogative or authority. So it's just kind of looking at those mitigation actions that had to do with stormwater and LID stuff. That's primarily it.
So is this a positive referral of sorts?
It's actually just a statement of what your feelings are. I'm not looking to refer it to the zoning commission. If you agree, that's fine, and if you don't, or you need to discuss it, that's also fine too. So, we have written some LID information. Somebody in the design review commission just asked me, you know, well, what do you tell people when they come in? We go through not only the zoning regulations, if it's a subdivision, obviously we go through the subdivision regulations with them. We go through the requirements of the LID stormwater plan that we have, which is only technically effective in the town center, but we ask people to look at the checklist we have for other areas of town as well. So if there are ways to do things like prevent excessive stormwater runoff from your site, we say, can you work this into your plan? Whether it's through pervious paving or pavers or swales or rain gardens or plantings, whatever it is. So all we're trying to do is saying, we need to try to make this a little bit more all-encompassing and use them, you know, as a backdrop for our regulations as we go forward.
Other questions? Concerns, thoughts?
Right, so regardless of the recommendation or whatever the commission decides, it's not binding?
That's right.
There's no regulations, no laws that will be produced?
That's exactly right.
And frankly, allows us to continue to implement the low-impact drainage areas and everything else, which I think is ultimately a very good idea.
It does, and I think, as I might have said when I responded to Bill, I think what this will also do is put another kind of thing to consider as we go into the 2016-17 Plan of Conservation and Development. It may be something that we want to put a little bit more emphasis on in that plan. The next time this one will be revised is 2018, so we'll catch up with that and
Yeah.
consider that at that time too. So just something we might want to consider. And it may turn out that we say, no, it's not important, but at least we'll have the opportunity to consider it.
Okay, any other ideas? More questions or anything? Hearing none, would somebody like to make a motion?
I just wonder what it costs to put this together. I mean, there's a lot of work in this thing, and who looks at it? You know, I read it and I thought it was very interesting, but it does Joe Blow in another town pick this up and say, oh, what am I going to do today, or whatever, you know what I mean? It's one of those documents that it's kind of like up there or something, you know?
You know, what happens with the, I mean, typically, and I've worked at 2 regional planning agencies in my career, what typically happens is that people spend a lot of time at the regional level working at these things. You know, they coordinate with the feds, obviously, they coordinate with the state. But what it really is, it's up to us as local officials to try to take that and try to work it into our local sort of methodology of how we do things. So, that's the idea anyway.
Okay, is there consensus to move this along? I feel like we should vote on it to accept it.
That'd be great.
Maybe not necessarily approve it, but to accept it, and
General support would be fine, it's a terminology that some of the other commissions used, and that was fine.
Okay, then I'll make a motion that we express general support for the Capital Region Natural Hazards Mitigation Plan Update 2013 through 2018 Executive Summary, with primary emphasis on Objective 1 on page 9 regarding stormwater management and groundwater recharge.
Perfect, thank you.
okay, we have a motion, second? Second for discussion. More ideas, thoughts? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Item 4 will be discussion of planning commission rules. I asked that Hiram's office give everybody a copy of our rules and procedures. In case anybody missed it, in section 1C, we have to notice on 2 successive agendas prior to an election. And my hope would be for this commission that this would be the first notice. Our next meeting in November, second week of November would be our second notice, and then we could, in theory, vote on our 3rd meeting. So that going into the new year, at least you have the structure to work within. Any thoughts, concerns, questions?
What section was that?
Second page, section 1C. The way I'm reading that is the election offers shall be noticed in 2 successive agendas prior to an election. So this would be the first notice, our next meeting would be the second notice, and then at our 3rd meeting, we would be able to vote, because I'm reading it as prior to an election.
So that would be the first week in November?
Uh,
First Tuesday?
I'm thinking it would be the 3rd one, because this is the first agenda. Our second agenda would
The
be
first week in November.
first week of November, and then our next meeting after that,
Which is gonna be the Thanksgiving week.
yes. Which possibly we would reschedule so that we give people maximum flexibility, but we gotta get through the first 2 first.
Yeah,
So-
I may need to do that. I'm gonna be in California one week, and I'm gonna be in Baltimore for the
Okay.
following week, so, but I'll send you the date so Hiram can see if we
Okay.
can look it
Why
up.
don't you do that, and we'll talk it through so that we can have, even if we have to have a special meeting.
Or is there a possibility of joining by phone? And we
I-
probably don't do that, but
We typically don't hire them. Do you remember if there's anything in here that allows us to do stuff
I
by,
talked to the town attorney about that one time, as long as it's clear that the person can both hear and speak, and that's part of the record, we can do that in the case of situations like that.
just that there might be an option to consider. But
Okay.
we can work it out one way or another.
Okay.
I'll be here through Thanksgiving week either.
well,
You should
okay.
think about it.
Let me just, I didn't know exactly how you were going to proceed on this, Mike. I think that one thing that probably is important is that the agenda actually say election of officers.
Okay,
And I don't think this does that. I wasn't sure that's where you were going to.
okay.
So I think that the next meeting, if you want to put that on, that's fine. And then subsequently will be the second one.
Now, are you reading this that at our second meeting we can vote? Or do we then need a 3rd meeting before we can vote?
I think that at this, second meeting, it can be noticed in two agendas, two successive agendas prior to the election. So the agenda's out before the first meeting, it's out before the second meeting. Should you decide to vote at your second meeting, I think that's probably entirely
Okay.
possible.
So that can happen the first week in November, because this,
Well, what Hiram's saying is that
today was the first notice.
No, it's
No,
not
No, it
noticed.
can't be.
Never mind.
but we don't need 3 meetings, which is the way I was reading it, so.
Yeah.
And then that's what I wanted to talk through, so that the way I was thinking wasn't,
Still brings us to the second week in November.
yeah.
Right.
Well, but we can have a special meeting and notice it at that special meeting.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, unless there's a controversy, I don't think it's gonna be an issue anyway. As long as you don't vote before the second meeting, I think that's fine. If you end up voting at the second meeting, I think that's fine. If it turns out that there's some discussion or whatever that needs to go on, and you vote at the third meeting, then that's fine. But I think that at least you have to wait till the second one, and then you should be fine.
Okay. Okay, then, we'll make sure that our next agenda specifically, what was the phrase that you used, Hiram?
I'll take election of officers.
Election of officers, okay.
And I'll put down on each of the agendas, first notice, second notice. So that
There you
people
go.
know, okay?
That'd be great, thank you. And the other thing that I did want to hand out to everybody, I had misspoken at our last meeting. And Ferg, I do apologize, your term is not up. You do not need to leave us, please. I had misread this and actually got, this is a copy from the town clerk's office. And actually, Rich, can you pass that over to Janice? It lists each of us, whether we're an alternate or a regular member, and what our term is. And from here, you'll notice that the 3 people whose term is up is Tina Hollenbach, myself, and Kevin Crow. So, again, I apologize for,
It's got my wrong address anyway, so it's probably not a legal documents.
so much for that witness protection program first. So, okay, any other questions on the policies and rules and procedures? Okay, discussion of the proposed policy for the Route 10 light pole banners. Hiram, do you want to talk this through?
Kick this off, as long as my voice is up. You should have 2 things, I think, in your package. One is a letter from First Selectman dated October 7th, Route 10 light pole banners. The second is a draft policy regarding the same thing, Route 10 light post banners. A little bit of background, and some of you may know a lot more than I, but this initially came up because the competition for banners, not only the 2 over Hop Meadow and Iron Horse is furious, it really requires a tremendous amount of time on the staff's part to not only get them properly permitted, and then thanks to Ferg, in 99% of the cases, maybe 100% as far as I know, get put up, but to try to juggle the competing interests between who wants it and when they want it and the proper dates and so on. We're probably a year out right now on the Hop Meadow banner, and that is very frustrating for people that decide, oh, we want to do something in 6 months, and they come in and they say, well, maybe 6 months, but 2015, and that's very frustrating for folks. This particular issue relates primarily just to the light pole banners and not the ones over the street. The ones along Hop Meadow are in the state right-of-way, and so the DOT has a lot to say about what those banners look like and how much advertising there is on them and who's putting the information on them. And so, in addition to and Mary refers in her letter to the brackets for the 19 light pole banners that were donated originally by the Chamber for the purpose of allowing banners to publicize Parks and Rec, Simsbury Celebrates, and so on. What has happened over time is that the competition and even the suggestion from other entities like EB, like Westminster, whatever other organizations are out there, they may be fine organizations, but the question is the competition between them is certainly keen. And so to try to develop a policy that allows us to sort of be fair about the organizations that use those and when they use them and how long they use them and how much copy is on them in terms of advertising, whatever, and how much of that we can get through DOT. It becomes a matter of trying to develop a policy that's clear, and it's not really as clear as it might be. And so, for example, eligible organizations is defined there. It talks about specifically ones that are not-for-profit organizations is defined by the IRS in the state of Connecticut, and it's based in Simsbury. That may sound like it's pretty clear and straightforward. I'm not so sure that there are probably a lot of questions on just what constitutes that. The second definition there, town-sponsored event. This is a discussion that probably took 45 minutes at the last meeting. What's a town-sponsored event? Exactly what it is. Which agencies are allowed to be town-sponsored? It talks, for example, at one point there about Black History Month. You know, is that town-sponsored? I'm not so sure. It's probably far larger than town, but it's something that the town may participate in a way. So any questions or comments you have on this policy, whether it's tonight or sometime in the near future, I'd like to get that information back to Jerry Toner and to Mary with regard to what should we do with these things. There are 19 light pole banners that are talked about in this policy, but just to let you know that there are other organizations in town, for example, the North Village Group. They've talked about the possibility of establishing poles where they could put banners on. So then you decide, do we really want banners from one end of town to the other? Whether they're good or bad, I'm not trying to offer any judgment, but is that we want. One other point is that some folks have said that if the banners are up all the time, you almost don't see them anymore. You know, so should they only be up a certain period of time, certainly during the year, summertime, maybe the winter, holiday season, whatever. So there are lots of questions, you know, that come up, and how should we do it? Some people have actually gotten so frustrated by the process and said, you know, we should just forget this and they should be taken down, period. I'm not sure that we all agree with that either. But I want to get your comments and your feelings and questions out there so that we can get back to the first selectman and Jerry about, you know, what ought to happen here. That's kind of where it is.
I have two comments on the over-the-road banners. The general policy is 2 weeks. So that, between both of them, that's 52 opportunities a year. And we don't currently have that many up until today that we've had a lag. We never had a lag before. But,
Yeah, not for a while.
as up until this morning. But it seems to me that if we treat those two equally, obviously the state one requires different permitting and because they control, but and as long as it's a not-for-profit and something that benefits cultural or something in the town. I mean, I think with 52 options at 2 weeks, that's it, no double hangs, first come, first served basis. If it fits the criteria that you, Hiram, and the town established, that would solve that. I heard, not officially, but I heard a suggestion from someone that said we should really limit the pole banners to down where first night is, let them have them, remove the 9 or 10 that aren't at that end of town, put them on Hot Meadow for music stuff, and let that just be controlled by the pack. And that way it would simplify it, and you do music and stuff down there, and the town, because right now the town has expense of having the town staff pay to hang the pole banners. And that might simplify it. And you're right, that we don't want the town to look like the Common and Granby, with all the signs, you know.
That's pretty
So
harsh.
that might
Yeah.
be something to think about, but, I mean, you know, across the road, there are a bunch of people and other people be trained, and that's, every 2 weeks isn't bad if there's a rotating staff, but the poles, you gotta get a truck, and, you know, it's a lot more complicated, and it involves the same permitting, really, and permission from DOT that the across the road ones do. And I mean, some of the people are not grandfather, but the Women's Club, the September Fest, the theater, some of them repeat, and it's not a big deal. They kind of, I don't think they take a lot of staff time, and I can't believe that I know this town is culturally active and with bikes and all that, but I can't believe that they're more than the competition. With 52 opportunities, that we're gonna run into trouble. And I happen to think that, you know, people say, oh, I wanna be on Hot Meadow versus Iron. I mean, I think Iron Horse is really just as good. You get the view from Hot Meadow, and, you know, if it's 2 weeks, you're gonna get all the looks you need, and, you know, if you don't get Hot Meadow this year, maybe you get it next year, but anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Any thoughts on the back of this? And there's one, talks about the maximum period for display, and this, again, this is light pole banners here, is 12 weeks. Some people felt that that was too long. Any thoughts on that at all, in terms of?
Seems to me that 12 weeks is 3 months. That's a long time to have those banners up. I could see
A month.
a month,
No
maybe
more.
more.
I mean,
I could, because Talcott Mountain Music Fest is 4 or 5 weeks, so I could see something up there for that, but you also want to rotate them around. You don't want the same thing there week after week, day after day, month after month. My gut tells me that 12 weeks is too long. You know, whether it should be 1 month or maybe 6 weeks.
Well, maybe considering, say, Talcott Mountain, since it goes on for a month, and you want to kind of drum up interest a month ahead of time, it might be for a 2-month period. And instead of, from what I could see, most of the banners are all the same, as compared to having all 4 shows bannered at the same time, the show upcoming events for that whole month. And they're kept on there for that month of June and through July. Now, that's the only long-term responsibility. Everything else, anything more than a month, then you lose interest, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
But since that's a
their
month
banner
going on
across the
program.
street hangs for usually 3 or 4 weeks. That's the only one that.
Yeah.
But the other thing, if we look at the financial considerations, if it costs the town money to do the polls, that we're talking about. But the other thing is, if there were more on Iron Horse, those are sponsorship opportunities which help raise money to defray portalettes, lighting, staging and such. So that can be an income stream as opposed to drain for the town, as opposed to the ones on the highway. So you can, and the PAC staff can change those without going into the town budget at all, because the town is concerned about the cost. Plus, it can help, you can quote, sell them to sponsor, you know, whatever the concerts are, and as a way to help defray all these tremendous rental costs we have. So I think that's something we should think about.
I think those are some good points to consider. Hiram, is there if we take a meeting or two to go over this stuff?
I'm not aware of any specific deadline in this, Mike, so I think certainly if you think of things in the next few days, email me or whatever, we can put it on the next agenda and come up with whatever other comments you might have.
I
That'd be
think
fine.
putting that on the next agenda is good. We can go through it, kind of talk through the different suggestions we have, and then bring them up again, kind of begin to reach consensus.
I'll make one comment if I could. This draft policy, to me, kind of intimates that each banner, or all 19 banners, would be used by an entity at a given time.
Yeah, good point.
Maybe we can break it up. You know, someone can apply to use 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 19. And that might also free up some other slots for people. Now, Ferg, as far as the Iron Horse Boulevard banners go, this policy doesn't address it.
No, this is just talking about the light poles, I think.
Should it address the Iron Horse Boulevard locations?
I don't know, right now, I think, and Hiram might correct me, I don't think the Iron Horse Boulevard, number one, I know it doesn't require a state permit like the 10 does.
That's right.
Are those people required to come up with an insurance certificate? I can't remember. I never got involved in any
I
of
don't
it.
know, but that's a good point, because somebody at a meeting last night said that they were actually riding their bike down there, and they looked up and the banner was extremely close to their head. So the liability of those things is important, and that person was very tall. They said if there were somebody, 6'6" or 6'4", they could have really hit it. So that's a good question. I don't know the answer, but I think it's certainly worth researching, and I'm glad to find that out.
Yeah.
I've never seen a banner that long. I mean, a very tall kid with a high bike.
Actually, I today walking down just down Hop Meadow, and I really never really noticed it before, but it's not that far up. It really isn't.
Well, it's the DOT, I mean, when we did that, it's like, quote, I don't know how many feet above the, whatever the legal truck height is.
No, this is the sidewalk banners, the light.
Oh, okay, yeah, I thought you meant over the road.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
no,
Oh,
that's
yeah,
not.
you're right.
No, we,
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Now that face makes sense.
Yeah. Scared me.
That is one big bike.
So
Yeah.
your comment about the Iron Horse Boulevard banners was the light pole banners.
that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's because the large banners over the highways, we pretty well got that nailed down, even though it's extremely competitive. But thanks to FERC's efforts and others that hang those, that tends to work out okay.
Mike and Bob are,
Yeah,
quote, regular hangers. They won't pump.
so that's good. It's good to
Strike
get
that
these
from the record.
questions out there.
In the bullpen.
Saying nothing. Okay. But I think that's a very good point about the liability insurance, and we should have similar standards for insurance standards for both places. I like the idea of maybe alternating the banners that are put up, and possibly by limiting the time frame that they can be there would allow us to alternate them, if you will, so you don't see the same thing and therefore becomes invisible. I think that's a couple of
I
very
mean,
good
it
points.
should be, it'd be great to have for the town, a one-page form, boom, 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 contact thing, insurance. Maybe some local insurance person would even say, I will have a certain policy to cover banners. This person just, even though you have Joe Blow as your regular insurance, to do a banner, just call this one. It's set and easy, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So that the customer, which is usually a nonprofit, I mean, it's always a the theater guild and all these people don't,
Yeah.
they don't, it shouldn't be difficult. I mean, if it helps,
Unfortunately, the
'cause-
town can't promote any one insurance agent, so.
No.
No, I'm not saying, but.
But that's in essence
people
what you're
could say-
asking.
I know, but
It's
these
a great idea,
banners
don't get me wrong.
are economic development drivers. Now, even if we have a bike thing that brings people here and they spend money in restaurants, or the theater guild brings people from West Hartford, and obviously the HSO does, so I think they do provide they help the town economically,
Mhm. Okay, well, let's look at those issues, and we'll bring them back for our next meeting. Thank you, Howard. Communications, administrative business. In our package, you would have seen a petition number 1077 for a cell phone tower from the Connecticut Siting Council. We periodically get these. There really is no action for the planning commission to take. These are actually handled by the state of Connecticut at the Siting Council. Is that correct, Hiram?
Yeah, that's correct. These, Mike, are, if they were new towers, or if they were owned by the town, there'd be a role for the commission. These are modifications of existing facilities, and so to that extent, they're exempt. You typically apply for exempt status when they put these in. So whether they're adding another antenna or adding another 2 feet to the pole, really, there's not much we can do about it, unless it really, really bothers somebody. So,
Yeah.
and I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, and typically what I've seen is it's really updating the equipment on these. Time goes by so we can get more Gs to our phone, which may or may not be a good idea. We can discuss that. Let's see. Second to last item for the agenda, approval of our minutes from October 8th. Do we have enough people here? Yes, we do. Absence of secretary, I guess I'll do this. Regular meeting, October 8th, 2013. Any changes to page 1? Actually, I had line 30. David Richmond is Rich Man.
Yeah, there's no D.
There's no D at the end. Jess? Okay.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I guess I do have an accent even though I don't hear it. Any other changes on page 1? Questions? Anything on page 2? Anything on page 2? How about page 3? Hearing none, I believe we have another stellar taker of the minutes by Janice. Can I have a motion to approve our October 8th minutes?
So moved.
Second, Bob? Have a motion, have a second. All in favor of approving October 8th minutes?
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? They pass. Any other business?
I can give you a 2-second update on
Sure.
a couple of things. One is the marketing study that the first phase was done, presented to the Board of Selectmen at their special meeting last week, forgot the day now, 16th. And that's up on the website, if you have a chance to take a look at it. I want to thank everybody for their help in putting that first phase together. We're hopeful that at some time in the future we'll get to go forward with phase 2, but if you have a chance to take a look at that draft study, it's pretty good. There's some interesting things in there. Talks about the fact that we should focus on smaller scale, not necessarily firms with hundreds and hundreds of people, but maybe smaller firms with 10, 15, 20, 30 people. So high quality firms is what we need to look for, businesses that are high quality, perhaps smaller, so fit better the context of the town. And that was one of the main recommendations of the study. It's an interesting study. There's, as I said, some not necessarily new and earth-shaking ideas, but sort of focuses our attention in terms of the types of things that we should be looking for in the future. So that was the marketing study, and as I said, it is on the website. Take a look at that if you have a chance. Second thing is that after the Hartford Charrette, that final presentation was also put on the website. We're continuing to work with CBRE, the real estate firm, and also the consultant, Gateway Planning, to try to put together the framework for the zoning that would take place or be landed on that parcel. I've had a couple of discussions with Gateway this week, and that framework is coming together. I'll probably have a copy of that in the next 7 days or so. And that framework is just kind of an outline of what that regulation would look like. It's not so specific yet as to put anybody, any potential buyer, in any kind of box or force anything. It's to give a lot of flexibility, but to say this is the general way in which we would approach rezoning of that property. And Hartford's very positive about that, as is their realtor, so we're not forcing anything on. I've noticed some comments by some people in the newspaper that had a lot of negative comments about this process, but I don't remember any of them actually attending any of the sessions or contributing in any way, so that I don't think they really understand how the process is working. Fact is, the Hartford is very happy with the process that's gone forward so far, as are we, and we're very anxious to move that forward, and hopefully they'll come up with a new purchaser sometime, or purchasers sometime in the near future as well. So that's that one. Third one and third
Sorry,
final.
Myron,
Yeah.
on that subject, would that parcel be eligible for PAD?
Yes, could do that. Now, what we have said is that our idea is that the form-based code would give us some idea about what those structures that are PAD might look like in terms of height, setbacks, roof pitches, things like that. So it could be a PAD. The form-based code kind of takes that to the next level and says, here's what we'd like it to look like, and gives it a little bit more guidance. I'm certain that we would not get to that level of detail until we found out that somebody really wanted to do that specific thing. So we're going to be having this framework created, saying here's what could happen very quickly, and if the Hartford comes to us or their real estate firm comes to us and says, okay, we have a firm and here's what they'd like to do, fine, we can tailor that code in a matter of 30 days and get that landed pretty quickly.
This strikes me as being a little odd that we could tailor the code. You know, we have zoning regulations, we have planning regulations, and it just strikes me as being, pretty cavalier that, oh, well, we'll adjust the zoning to suit the developer.
Within certain parameters, that's exactly what the proposal is. Take, for example, the fact that there's an existing 638,000 square foot building on that site, way out of scale with anything else that we have.
What was previously approved.
Exactly. So Would it be appropriate, for example, to allow another one of those on the northern 40 acres? That's a question that came up about 5 years ago when I first came here. Don't know. We'd have to go through a lot of design iterations in order to do that. So we would work carefully and quickly with our consultant to say, you know, can this fit? Does it fit? You know, can it be worked into a code that would work? We want to make sure that what goes there is better, is good for everyone, not only the townspeople, but also the user of the property. So we want to make sure.
You know, at some point, the decision of the developer or the property owner should trump the desire of the town.
You know, interesting term, Bill. I think that our goal is to try to work with them. Not that, and we know fully well, and I answered this at the charrette, what the Hartford wants to do with it is really ultimately their decision. No question, it's a private property, no question. But what they've agreed to do is work closely with us so that what results there benefits everybody. And we think that's the best of all possible
A lot of
solutions.
times it's hard to reach that
No
point.
question, no question.
In my mind, you're trying to make it like shovel-ready without putting a shovel
No,
in the
no,
ground.
shovel
it's-
ready to
Yeah,
who's
in your
liking,
mind.
to who's liking.
Well, here's a really good example of that. We wrote a letter to the Department of Community and Economic and Community Development a week or so ago, suggested 6 or 7 things for them. The state of Connecticut, as far as I know, and have investigated this quite a bit, doesn't have a certified sites program like a lot of other states do. So if somebody comes in and they said, we want to see a list of the certified sites where we could do X, there is no such list. And so what we've suggested to DECD, for example, is that they create a model program using the Hartford site to create a certified sites program for the state of Connecticut. You know, we've got examples of it. I've offered to do it for them. We're waiting for an answer back from them. So it essentially creates a shovel-ready site. But more than that, it creates a site where the permitting agencies, DEP, DOT, DECD, all those agencies that actually gotten on board in the beginning and say, okay, we all are going to agree to move this thing forward at a rapid pace in order to help the economic development. So that's a program that we've said that's sort of aimed at shovel-ready, but it's even broader than that. Because we've asked DECD to take a point person and appoint a point person so that if we have a question, we don't have to call a state bureaucracy and not get an answer for 3 or 4 weeks. We know we're going to call John Smith and here's his number. Matter of fact, here's his cell phone number, and we can get an answer on Friday night if we need to. So that's the kind of thing that we're hoping to smooth that out. But Bill, I completely agree that ultimately it's the Hartford's choice. They have been very helpful with regard to agreeing to go
And we
along.
should be thankful for that.
Absolutely.
You know, there's no doubt that, you know, we'd all
Foot
like to
most of
see
the bill.
something that satisfies everyone
Yeah.
Yeah.
and is good for everyone.
And maybe that's ideal, but frankly, that's what we're shooting for. So,
I think the way I view this is they can ask. We ultimately, as a town commission, have to agree. But as property owners or whoever they're selling to can do the ask, much like West Street. And then we could agree to it or not and see how it fits in with the POCD.
No. We have to live within the regulations. At that point,
Absolutely.
we're an administrative body,
Yes.
you know, we're not really telling them what color to paint the building. That's not our purview.
right.
Based
But-
on the meeting I missed this summer, I know with the 40 acres, we could at least do 4 commercial horse stables, based on that ratio that I read when I was catching up.
Or not.
So, right?
With or without
Yes,
lights.
with a lot of dung.
I'll take your professional opinion on that, sir.
Sorry, I missed that one.
No.
That's all.
Okay, all set? Any other business come before us, gentlemen?
I move to adjourn.
We have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Rich second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I got it done.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.